One, two, three, rubber duck. Okay, good afternoon everyone and welcome to this meeting of Cabinet this afternoon. Before we start the agenda proper, can I just draw your attention to the health and safety and emergency instructions there on the screen. Please take note of them. Moving to the agenda itself, apologies for absence. I'd like to recall Councillor Nicholson, who's of course away on leave, Councillor Mrs Bowyer, who is not well this afternoon, and I think Councillor Michael Leaves is still trying to sort out an additional problem. I'm sure he'll be with us shortly. Second item is declarations of interest. Has anyone got any declarations they want to make in respect of any item on the agenda this afternoon? No. Okay, thank you very much. Have we any questions from the public?
No, Chair.
No. Have I any urgent business? No, thank you very much. So we can go to the main item this afternoon, which is the plan for libraries. Councillor Jordan, can I ask you to introduce that item?
Thank you, Leader. First of all, I'd like to thank the officers who took part in the consultation, because I think it's one of the most extensive consultations that I've been involved with and I've come across on the council, and I think we cannot stress that enough on the hard work that they actually put into that, and also the stress that a lot of them would put under with some of the vigorous questioning and the attitude of some of the people within that. I would also like to thank those people who did take part in the consultation. I'm going to say we had a reasonably good response. And as all along we have said, we are listening, and it is going to be the responses through that consultation and the direct and the conversations that we had with people that has helped shape the plan that we have before us today. We have amended the plan, and the plan is as has been published, and I'm going to say if anybody has got any questions, the team's here and myself will be able to answer any.
Thank you, Councillor Jordan. Welcome Dave and Faye here this afternoon, who I know have been leading on this particular issue. Do either of you want to add anything at this stage? Is there any last pieces of detail, information that we've garnished in the last few days that you want to add or comment on?
Not at this stage, Leader. I think we'll just open the floor up to questions once we've done a brief presentation, if that's okay.
Okay, thanks very much indeed. Right, colleagues, anyone, any questions?
Presentation.
We've got a presentation.
Oh, you've got a presentation?
Yes.
Oh, do you want to? Yeah, okay. Okay, let's halt that for a minute. Then, David, you want to run through the presentation? Thank you.
Okay. I just thought it would be useful to recap on the journey we've been on with the libraries. It's taken a lot to get to this stage. I think it's just more poignant to actually go through some of the details. So, if I can just remind Cabinet where we are now. So when we started this journey, we were looking at our original plan and the original state of the estate. So we've currently got 17 libraries, we've got roughly 81 full-time equivalent staff, and we've got a variation of cost per visit across the estate. And it's interesting that 80% of library visits accounted for in 7 of our libraries, 75% of all items borrowed, and 75% of attendance at library events. So you can see within a state of 17, we've got 10 libraries that currently only equate to 80% of current library visits, which I think is quite significant for the size of the city of Plymouth. We have more e-books are borrowed each year than printed books in 10 of our libraries, and the cost per visit range from 93 pence to £28.26, depending on the usage and the cost of those buildings. So we thought it was an opportunity to actually seriously look at modernising the service and rationalise the estate where possible, and trying to minimise the impact on our current users. We've got opening hours and library offer which is inconsistent across the city, and we've also got thinly spread staff, so on occasions we've got single lone working, so we actually can't carry out activities at some of those smaller libraries. And in terms of fairness and some of our core values as a council, I think that's something we were quite passionate about trying to rectify. And we also had a limited outreach offer, which, again, we've got areas of the city that weren't currently benefiting from the library service. And in terms of fairness, it was an opportunity for us to change that and do something different. So the next slide looks at the current library catchment area, and this is a radius of 2 miles per location. So you can see we've got huge overlaps across the city, and again we've broken it down into the localities that the health model works for at the moment. And we can see that actually some areas, and from our own experience, we know that some of our library users actually use more than one library. So again, this was an opportunity for us to actually do something different. So just to take you back, last year we carried out the conversation. So that's where we held a consultation with the public to actually define what they wanted from a library service. So that was things like digital skills training, health information, help with job seeking. So when we came to actually pull the plan together, it's an opportunity to actually address what the citizens of Plymouth were telling us they wanted from a library service, and not just rely on what the standard public opinion is about the historical use of a library. So that enabled us to develop the plan. And then we took that plan from January through to April, a 12-week public consultation. And in fact, it was pretty comprehensive. We were praised by scrutiny for our approach to the conversation, and we had more responses in the public consultation as a consequence of following the same model. So we used the same methodology, we put a lot of effort, we attended 19 public events ourselves, so we were out there talking to the members of the public. We contacted a range of stakeholders, we contacted all the primary and secondary schools and other education providers, and we had a lot of publicity, as you probably appreciate, in the Herald. So they were following us around, they were reporting on the issues. So I don't think we could be criticised for actually being really comprehensive and engaging and open to people actually engaging in that consultation. But it's interesting that when we talk about users and non-users, when we did the conversation, we actually received 14% of non-user input into that conversation. When we came to the public consultation, that figure dropped to 8% of non-users, but as a contrast, 7.8% of active users actually responded to the public consultation. So it's virtually identical in terms of active users and non-users participating in the public consultation. So the key findings from the public consultation, which again are quite revealing, 43% agreed to enhance our online service. So we were talking about 3 core offers. But interestingly, the younger market, and if we're thinking about the service going forward, we need to address their needs as well. So 50% of under 25s wanted us to enhance our online service. But the next ones, and the next 2 are pretty big. 75% agreed to enhance the in-library service, and that was based on our original proposals of the 7 core libraries. And 55% agreed to enhance our outreach offer. So we're fairly certain that actually the offer we had on the table with the 7 libraries remaining open and the proposals to close 10 were pretty much accepted when we went out to talk to people. But it's a pretty emotive subject. You know, people are very passionate about the library in their local area, and we listen to their voices. 80% of respondents from wards directly affected, as you can probably appreciate, disagreed with the proposal. A lot of those people weren't necessarily active users of the library as it stands at the moment. I'm hoping that the marketing that we did as part of the consultation, they will become active users going forward, so that's really important. And we want to engage with those community groups to make sure that they come and work with us and see how we can develop the service going forward. And it won't be a surprise that 50% of respondents disagreed with the overall plan, because with a public consultation you tend to get the kind of negative aspect that comes across. So we then took those key findings to the Council's Scrutiny Select Committee, and they noted the 12-week consultation independent analysis of results that's been carried out was in line with the Public Sector Equalities Duty and guidance in relation to the Libraries Act of 1964. They made 6 recommendations, and you'll see from the packs in front of you, we've taken forward 4 of those recommendations, and of the 2 we haven't taken forward, we've put our rationale as to why they weren't taken forward, and they've been incorporated into the plan in terms of our response. So our new plan for libraries. So we were criticised for not listening. This was a done deal. We were going to close 10 libraries. That certainly wasn't the case. We've taken on board the public feedback, the community feeling, the community specific feedback for certain libraries, and the recommendations from scrutiny. And one of those recommendations was actually to revisit the needs assessment. If you remember from the original plan, we carried out a detailed needs assessment that wasn't weighted. Scrutiny asked us to look at that, and we proposed to look at the 10 libraries that were earmarked for closure, so that wouldn't adversely affect the public consultation and the methodology around that. And we've reweighted it based on those recommendations from scrutiny. And as a result of that, we've come up with a model that still retains our original concept of our 7 core libraries, but it also enables us to have a second tier of libraries that don't fit our proposed original in-library offer, but they still can be justified in remaining open based on that revised needs assessment. And significantly, this plan, the revised plan, reduces the impact on our current visitors from 20% down to just over 6%, which I think is quite significant. So again, we're reducing the impact on our current users. And that's only for people that physically can't go to an alternative location. We've also still maintained the investment. This is about modernising the service. So investment in our Tier 1 buildings to ensure they're fit for purpose. So we're talking about meeting room space at Crown Hill, Devonport and Southway. And we're still exploring, and we're looking to implement the total rebuild of St Budo site, which again, I think if you look at what's happening across the country, whilst we're committed to investing before we take savings out. And we're also talking about the enhanced online offer. In addition to that, the exciting thing for us as the library service is the outreach offer. We've been criticised for perhaps looking at reducing opening hours, sometimes reducing staff. The offer in some of our less attractive buildings actually becomes a barrier to people. So with the recommendations from the Libraries Task Force and central government, it's about actually don't be constrained by your buildings, create the resource in a innovative way and take it out and actually take that service into the community and actually engage with partners. And we can do that by closing the 6 that we're proposing to close. We can actually free up some resource. So our new proposals are only talking about a reduction of 7 full-time equivalents, which are non-permanent staff. And we can actually now use the experience of our library service to go out and engage in the community setting, which I think is really exciting. And through the summer, you'll see us working with Cater Ed, actually bringing that into life. Again, as part of the consultation, people criticised, they said they didn't understand what the outreach offer is. So we'll start to market that so that when we're ready to go in September, we can start to deliver that. And we'll also, we haven't ruled out exploring alternative delivery models going forward. So the proposals as it stands in the revised plan is the closure of libraries at Eggbuckland, Erney Settle, Lera, Tothill and Stoke on the 16th of September. We're going to keep West Park open until we've finished the development of the St Budo site to make sure there's a library presence in that area. And from the new offer, that's just a graphical image of what the new offer will look like. So, and it's fundamentally the same as what we've originally proposed. So we've still got our core offer, but we've enhanced that with keeping those Tier 2 libraries open in addition. But we're still delivering the outreach, we're still delivering the in-library offer, we're still investing before we take any savings. And the next slide gives you an indication of where those maps. So it's very similar, it's difficult to see on that size there, but it's very similar to the coverage we had before, both in terms of identification of those outreach locations. So we've been specific, we've had engagement with those groups, so we can now deliver outreach consistently across the estate, and they're the identified locations. So where a library is closing, we've identified outreach locations. And as I say, people still have the opportunity to go to another library, and every resident of Plymouth will still be within 2-mile radius of any library. And then the final slide is just reinforces the closure impact reducing from 20% to 6.07%. We're talking about a £250,000 investment in the estate, which is quite significant. And there will be savings come out as a reduction of those headcount and the leasehold costs, because we didn't own most of the buildings that we're proposing to close. So we were committed to investing before taking the savings out, and that's what we've delivered, and that's part of our revised plan. So I'm more than happy to take questions. Faye, I don't know if you want to add anything.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to reiterate a few points that Dave's mentioned. So the whole plan that we've done here is about listening to the users and the non-users of our library service with a view to modernising our library service across the city. And as Councillor Jordan mentioned, there was some challenging aspects within that because it was a city-wide consultation. So we did try our best to go out and meet all of the people that we needed to. But I think that we've worked really hard to achieve this where we are today, and we are proposing a city-wide modern library provision for the future. I just wanted to make that point. Thank you.
Thank you, Faye. I'd certainly join with you in that sentiment. This has always been about how we can improve the service, how we can modernise the service, and how we can invest in the service. And I'm really pleased with this plan here now, because I think that does very, very clearly demonstrate how we intend to do that. I think it's also important that we don't forget the enhanced outreach service, because I've said it before, but I think it bears repeating. We seem to think that we have a comprehensive service that covers the entire area of the city. Well, I mean, there's one area, Whitley, which is a significant community within our city that doesn't have any provision at all. And you know, this plan deals with that and puts in place a proper service to the people of Whitley, which I think is really really important. And I think it also shouldn't be forgotten about the level of investment that that we continue to want to make, and this plan will commit us to that, so that we will end up with, you know, a much enhanced service, still delivering against the needs of people who told us what they want in the consultation, but actually makes it fit for, as I've said before, you know, the 2020s and not the 1970s. So thank you for your efforts in that direction. Colleagues, questions? Councillor Downey?
Aye. First of all, I'd just like to echo the leader's comments here regarding Whitley. It's fantastic you've actually excuse me, identified Whitley as an area in need of outreach. So thank you very much. That's a great piece of work. People will be very, very pleased about that. But my question is in two parts, so you can have a bit each if you like, or what if you answer both? Was the Equalities Impact Assessment that you undertook, do you feel it was sufficient in its breadth and its scope? And are you confident, therefore, that the assessment has adequately informed the plan moving forward?
Thank you, Chair. When we initially went out for public consultation, we carried out a full equality impact assessment on the public consultation. I'm very comfortable with that. One of the recommendations that came out of scrutiny was the fact that they wanted an overarching equality impact assessment on the revised plan. We've gone above and beyond that. We've actually done a revised equality impact assessment on every single library with the revised plan. So I'm very comfortable that we've gone above and beyond what we needed to do. And I think the thing to bear in mind is that whilst we're talking about library closures, what we're not talking about is taking the library service away. So where people physically can't get to an alternative location, we will still bring the library service to them in their community setting. So if they haven't got the means or the ability to go elsewhere, we can still deliver that library service in the setting that they live in.
Okay, thanks, Dave. That's exactly what a modern library service needs. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Downey. Councillor Darcy?
Thank you, Leader. Thank you very much for your presentation. And I echo words said earlier. This has been quite an undertaking in respect of a consultation process, and it's been quite an experience to receive that feedback in the various forms that we have done. You will have noticed certainly a lot of commentary, particularly in the press. You alluded to in your presentation earlier, and those, shall we say, who are opposed to the plans for any kind of review of the library's offering. And just focusing that commentary rather than criticism, are you content that the consultation process was sufficiently broad enough and perhaps informative enough for those consultees that we were seeking to consult with? In that respect, because that seems to be a little bit of a commentary, we won't call it a criticism, but certainly in the local press and those opposed to the plans, both political parties and members of the public. So was the consultation, in your view, sufficiently broad enough and informative enough for the consultees to give a proper opinion on the process?
The short answer is yes, we believe it was. We obviously ran the consultation for the period that was required of us, which was the full 3 months. We had various ways for people to consult, so online, on paper form. We have our staff in the libraries conducting, helping people to fill their paper responses out. As Dave said in the presentation, we had 19 public sessions, which we invited people to come to, so they were library users and non-library users. We also went out and specifically met with groups of people, third sector organisations and our partner agencies to talk to them about our plan and welcome their feedback, and we offered that out to numerous people. We did various mail shots, so I think that yes is the answer. We have absolutely done everything that was required of us to meet as many people as possible throughout.
If I may just follow up with a supplementary, if I may please, Leader. In your presentation, and you just referred to it, those non-users, we clearly engaged with an element of society, which are the demographic being a non-user of a library. And some of those figures are slightly skew-whiffed because they actually, their representation in the consultation somehow ended up almost equal to the users in some aspect. So I guess going forward, I hope we will harness that data and that information so we can engage more with those non-users and encourage them to be more regular users. That goes without saying. But similar to the previous question, are you content that we engage with as many non-users as possible, bearing in mind they're non-users? So again, the consultation was broad enough to encourage non-users to engage with the process. So we also took their views on board, which sounds ironic because they're not users, but I guess they would have some good ideas and some good input into that also.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's going back to the conversation. You know, we were targeting actually why is the, you know, you remember the graph of it going down and users over the years reducing, and we wanted to find out exactly what was going wrong. So when we did the conversation, there's a high proportion of non-users that were targeted because you're not coming through our doors. What can we do to make the service better? So when we came to do the public consultation, we'd refined our plans based on that original feedback. So things like job searching, digital skills, which is really important now with universal credit around the corner, and improving the online offer so that people can access things, you know, digitally. You know, we incorporated that into the overall plan. It was interesting in the consultation that some of the feedback was that some of those things that we had received, some of the online stuff, you know, people fed back that actually that's, you know, we're putting everything online. Well, we're not putting everything online. We've got 3 distinct offers: online, outreach, and in library. And we made a conscious effort to do that. And we wanted to train the in-house skills so that people can be trained digitally if they're digitally excluded at the moment, and encourage people. But what also came out is one of the recommendations of scrutiny is actually about effectively marketing and making a greater awareness of what the library service does. So as part of the pack, you'll see that we've got a marketing and engagement plan so that we will drive forward. We're going to take the outreach into those communities, and we can do more of that. And I think once people see what the library service can offer, hopefully it will draw them through our doors. But as I alluded to in the presentation, we're also going to challenge communities. You were very vocal about wanting to keep certain libraries open, and we will hold them to that because we want, you know, it's good for them and it's good for the community, and we can do more together, and some of the partnership relationships that we've built up as well.
Can I just add to that, Leader? I'm going to say it was interesting that some of the people who were most vocally opposed to this had the opportunity to engage in the process. They even had the opportunity to come and speak to myself and yourself, and they chose not to. I actually find it quite strange that some of those people who are trying to claim this as a political victory for them actually didn't engage in the process. They may have filled in the form, but they didn't come and speak to me. They haven't spoken to the team, and they haven't spoken to you. I know that for sure. Yet some of the people who were opposed to this, who did come to speak to us, made some very valid points that were fed into the process and did make a difference. The one who springs to mind was when I was invited down to Peveril. I actually spoke to someone who was did homeschooling. And some of the points that she made were very, very good. And I fed those back into the team, and that helped in making some of the decisions that we've made. So I do find it very strange that some of those people who were very much against this chose not to engage. And for them to turn around and say that they've managed to save a library is ridiculous. Because how can they have saved it if they didn't engage in the process?
Thank you, Glenn. I absolutely agree with you there. I'm confident that we've done what we said we were going to do, which was to consult widely. We said we would do that. We said we would listen. We used the phrase on numerous occasions that this wasn't a done deal. And I think the final plan that is now emerging before us is ample testimony to the fact that we did what we said we were going to do. Clearly, there will always be people who will take a point of view for whatever reasons, and they're absolutely, of course, entitled to do that. How valid some of those comments were is questionable, and people must make up their minds when they consider the whole thing in the round. So I'm confident that we have a plan here which is the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do for the city, and unless anyone else has any comments they want to add further to what's already been said, can I just draw you to the 4 recommendations on page 3, which cover the validity of the 12-week consultation process. Deals with the recommendations from scrutiny that we received last week. Recommends council adopts this plan for libraries as its annual plan, and recommends that the council approves the outline delivery plan for the new library service, performance measures and outline communication, engagement and marketing plan for the new service. Can I ask you to indicate your support for that?
Great.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Any against? No, that's unanimous. Right, thank you for that. And that concludes this afternoon's business. Thank you for your time and effort.